There is a kind of bread baked, not by fire, but by life itself. And whoever understands that secret also understands how the body heals. Are you ready to discover what ancient people believed was the key to longevity? I am Ethan Marshall, a 60-year-old physician in the United States who has spent more than 3 decades studying natural health and the body's self-healing mechanisms. Yet there is one story that still sends a shiver down my spine every time I recall it. Imagine this. When people asked Jesus how to bake bread without fire, he not only answered but shared a method so remarkable that modern nutritional science still bows to its wisdom. A recipe without fire, without yeast, using only sunlight and the awakening life inside each wheat berry. If you want to explore this secret with me, subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share the video to support the spread of meaningful health knowledge. The story begins with the Essenes, a community that lived more than 2,000 years ago, known as masters of purity and healing. In ancient texts, they are described as people who lived in harmony with nature's rhythms, ate simply, lived close to sunlight and flowing water, and believed that health did not come from laboratories but from alignment between the body and nature. Within that worldview, the story of bread made without fire emerged as a symbol. The Essenes believe food truly nourishes only when it still carries the breath of life. They called this eating from the table of God, not as a religious ritual, but as an expression of trust in the natural order into which all living beings are created. When Jesus explained how Essene bread is made, he was not merely teaching a recipe. He was opening a doorway into a philosophy that had existed for thousands of years, that the simplest things can hold the deepest healing power. Picture that moment. In the dry desert, he held a handful of tiny wheat berries and spoke of the life hidden within each sprout. To the Essenes, food was not just something to consume. It was how they preserved bodily purity, how they connected to sunlight, and how they kept the mind clear amid a restless world. Their lifestyle astonishes many today, especially when reading accounts of their longevity and vitality. People who live to 120 with supple bodies and luminous minds. And it all began with honoring the humble gifts nature provides. To close, consider this question. If you had to choose the single most important factor in sustaining health, what would it be? A. The more natural the food, the better. B. Modern methods hold the key. Leave your answer in the comments so I can see what you think. The production of this bread through sprouting and sunlight involves 4 key stages, each with clear biological foundations aimed at preserving enzymes, increasing nutrient bioavailability, and creating a food that digests more easily. The first stage is soaking. Wheat berries are submerged in clean water at room temperature for 8 to 12 hours, depending on size and dryness, to break dormancy, activate internal enzymes, and soften the outer bran, preparing the grain for efficient biochemical transformation. The second stage is germination. After rinsing, the grains are spread in a thin layer in a moist but well-ventilated environment at about 68 to 70°C, allowing sprouts to emerge within 24 to 72 hours. During this period, internal reactions increase enzyme activity that breaks down starch and protein and reduce phytic acid, a mineral-binding compound, thereby improving the bioavailability of iron, zinc, and other micronutrients. The third stage is grinding or pounding. Once the sprouts reach the desired length, the softened grains are gently crushed by hand or with a low-heat method, such as stone grinding, avoiding excess heat. This breaks open the structure, releasing starches, proteins, and enzymes, forming a pliable dough that requires no leavening agents. The fourth stage is sun-drying. The dough, shaped or spread into thin sheets, is placed under direct or indirect sunlight until it reaches the desired moisture level. The key here is maintaining a low temperature, typically below 113 degrees, to prevent enzyme destruction and preserve the living qualities of the food. Slow solar drying forms a firm surface and subtle flavor without denaturing proteins or enzymes, unlike high heat. Nutritionally, this sequence boosts enzymatic activity, reduces anti-nutrients, makes carbohydrates easier to digest, and preserves heat-sensitive vitamins and bioactive compounds. The final product is thin, light, and gentle on digestion, reducing the need for heavy gastric secretions. From a safety perspective, the method requires clean water and surfaces, thorough rinsing during soaking, proper ventilation to prevent mold during sprouting, and complete drying to prevent microbial growth. In sum, the sequence of soaking, sprouting, grinding, and sun-drying is a simple yet highly effective biological process that transforms raw grains into living food rich in enzymes and aligned with ancient principles of preserving vital energy. Living foods hold deep nutritional and physiological significance because the biological processes within grains, fruits, and vegetables remain intact and actively support digestion, absorption, and internal balance. When grains are activated through soaking and sprouting, endogenous enzymes such as amylase, protease, and phytase intensify their activity, beginning to break down starches, proteins, and mineral complex within the grain itself, meaning partial pre-digestion occurs even before the food reaches the human gut, reducing digestive workload and lowering anti-nutrient levels like phytic acid that inhibit mineral absorption. Heat-sensitive molecules, vitamin C, B vitamins, and phytochemicals, retain their antioxidant and regulatory functions, protecting tissues from oxidative stress and supporting enzymatic reactions. Because living foods avoid high-temperature processing, they produce fewer advanced glycation end products, AGEs, which are associated with chronic inflammation and tissue aging. In the colon, lightly processed sprouted foods exhibit prebiotic qualities. Their fibers and fermentable oligosaccharides nourish beneficial gut microbes, promoting production of short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, an essential energy source for colonocytes that strengthens the mucosal barrier and reduces microbial toxin translocation into systemic circulation. This contributes to lower systemic inflammation and improved immune balance. In terms of energy metabolism, easily digestible living foods reduce the thermic effect of digestion, allowing the body to reallocate energy toward tissue repair and physiological regulation. Their pre-broken components also stabilize post-meal blood glucose more effectively than refined carbohydrates, supporting insulin balance and satiety. Clinically and preventively, incorporating a meaningful percentage of living foods, especially sprouted grains, fresh fruits, and vegetables, aligns with goals of reducing digestive waste buildup, alleviating constipation, and restoring colon function, all without overlooking the need for proper hygiene and preparation to prevent contamination. Ultimately, the value of living foods lies in their synergy of enzymes, bioavailable nutrients, gut microbiome balance, and reduced digestive burden, forming a physiological foundation for the body's natural capacity to heal. In traditional and natural health perspectives, the colon is not merely the terminal segment of the digestive tract, but the body's filter station and mirror of systemic health. When its function declines, most clearly seen in constipation, dry stools, or prolonged transit times, a series of physiological consequences follow. Stagnant stool undergoes uncontrolled fermentation and protein degradation by harmful microbes, producing toxins such as ammonia, phenol, indole, harmful short-chain fatty acids, and sulfur compounds. These can cross a compromised mucosal barrier into the bloodstream, increasing endogenous toxic load and triggering systemic inflammation. At the same time, stool retention disrupts the balance of beneficial to harmful flora, decreasing production of protective short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, depriving colonocytes of essential energy, weakening the mucosal barrier, and contributing to leaky gut, which in turn worsens allergies, immune dysregulation, chronic fatigue, joint issues, and skin disorders. Chronic irritation or compression of colon tissue can impair neural reflex pathways influencing distant organs, affecting digestion, respiration, and hormonal regulation, causing widespread symptoms that are often overlooked. Processed foods, refined starches, and mucus-forming foods are major contributors to colon dysfunction. They disrupt motility, reduce necessary bulk, encourage harmful fermentation, and promote toxin-producing microbes. In contrast, shifting towards simple foods rich in both soluble and insoluble fiber, fruits, vegetables, and sprouted seeds, increases stool volume, stimulates motility, nourishes beneficial microbes, and increases butyrate production, reducing transit time and toxin accumulation. Supportive therapies such as gentle colon cleansing or irrigation may be used cautiously under hygienic and supervised conditions for severe stagnation. Ultimately, the goal is to restore and maintain colon health through a continuous cycle, reducing harmful inputs, rebuilding microbial balance through proper nutrition, reinforcing natural motility through movement and consistent elimination habits, and reserving cleansing interventions for appropriate cases. The stability and cleanliness of the colon form a central pillar for tapping into the body's innate self-healing ability. The central message drawn from observing natural foods, biological principles, and internal balance is that sustainable health begins when humans shift their relationship with nature from resistance to cooperation. In an era where industrial foods, high-heat processing, additives, and irregular eating patterns undermine digestive and metabolic stability, returning to simplicity, keeping food as close as possible to its original state, becomes an essential foundation for restoring physiological order. At the biological level, choosing foods that preserve natural structure, enzymes, and regulatory factors reduces digestive strain and directly supports cellular repair, especially in tissues with high metabolic demand, such as the intestinal lining and hepatobiliary system. This aligns with classical healing frameworks that prioritize cleansing, unobstructed flow, and regeneration as the three pillars of whole-body health. Preventively, minimizing chronic inflammation, reducing endogenous toxins, and strengthening the gut barrier lowers the long-term risk of metabolic and immune-related disorders rooted in subtle but persistent imbalance. Practically, this approach requires consistency rather than complexity. Prioritize minimally processed foods, increase fresh fruits and vegetables, incorporate sprouted or sun-dried foods, and balance intake to conserve energy for internal restoration. Beyond nutrition, the principle carries philosophical weight. Health is not the result of forceful intervention, but of aligning with natural rhythms. When foundational elements such as diet, sleep, movement, and elimination fall into place, the rest of the physiology reorganizes itself. Cooperation with nature encapsulates this entire tradition of health wisdom, a reminder that enduring well-being arises from simplicity, that the human body is designed with remarkable innate resilience, and that our task is not to override these mechanisms, but to provide the environment in which they can operate fully. Practiced consistently, this principle becomes the groundwork for long-term vitality and a life in harmony with the laws that sustain existence. The overarching principles converge on a single truth. Enduring health does not emerge from complicated interventions, but from returning ourselves to the natural order. When food remains close to its original form, when the colon functions freely, and when the body is not burdened by toxins and digestive strain, the innate healing systems become noticeably more active. This spirit is embodied in the image of sprouting grains and bread cooked by sunlight. Simple, yet representing a profound natural biology that modern science increasingly validates. Cooperating with nature rather than opposing it leads to stability, restoration, and long-term physiological balance. One practical takeaway is gradually increasing the proportion of natural foods in the daily diet, especially fruits, vegetables, and sprouted seeds. Replacing even one meal a day with minimally processed, easy-to-digest foods can significantly reduce stress on the colon, improve energy, enhance sleep, and increase digestive comfort. This small shift compounds into meaningful long-term benefits. Which factor do you believe has the greatest long-term impact on health? Simplicity in nutrition or consistency in daily habits? Share your answer in the comments so others can join the conversation. Please fill out the form in the video description to receive a free Healing Health ebook, and remember to subscribe, like, and share the video to support the continued creation of valuable content.